lot of information I want to share with you. Yeah, the program runs 45, 50 minutes here. You can stop it at any time, one way or the other. But I want to share this very, very important bit of information, an investment option available to anyone that is out there. Possibly you've attended some of my workshops in the past, talked about it briefly. Now we're going to get into more detail, the nuts and bolts of it, of how this thing kind of operates. I'm going to go through some background with you, some history, and then we'll use an example to move us ahead. Well, first of all, as always, reading and enlightenment is so important. Here are 3 or 4 books that I would recommend and suggest that you add to your library. Power of Zero by David McKnight. McKnight has he has many other bestsellers. One of his other ones is Look Before You, LIRP. That's his acronym, LIRP, for what we're going to be talking about. Doug Andrew has many books. He's got about 13 bestsellers. From his original book, Missed Fortune, 538 pages long, to Last Chance Millionaire, he wrote in 2007. But I'm suggesting for easier reading for people to grab a hold of his book, The Laser Fund. That one is his acronym for this thing, LASER standing for liquidity and safety and rate of return. I've got a copy of his book right here, and my reason for suggesting it, I had the honor and pleasure of helping Doug in some aspects to edit this. No, I didn't get any money out of it. But here's the unique thing. We all learn in different ways in how we understand things. And the way that Doug has drafted this, if you read the book this way, as it's sitting right now, it'll explain all of it in financial terms. So if you're a financial person like me and need numbers to prove things up, you'll read it this way. Well, you turn the book around, and this is not a joke, and for people that have a little difficulty in understanding things with numbers, but like stories, he explains stories of exact clients. In fact, 3 of my past clients are in here. They've hidden the names, and explains all of the same concepts. So you say, oh, I could use it under this way. Some good reading. There's multiple other books that are out there, but here's a starting point for you on this. Now, baking soda. In all my classes, I always ask the question, what do you use baking soda for? And most people come out and say, well, with this product, I could use it for washing clothes, brushing my teeth, deodorizing, I can clean silverware with it. And you're probably spouting off a whole bunch of other ideas along the way. Well, that's right. But usually in a class, about the 20th idea is, oh, I can use it for baking. Yeah. So you mean to tell me one product can be used for more than one thing? Yeah, that's for sure. Keep that thing in mind. Here's the difference. The misunderstanding that people have, and excuse me, we backed up, misunderstanding people have of life insurance. You have always thought incorrectly about life insurance because you think life insurance, the only function of it is to pay off when you're dead. Wrong. Just like baking soda, one product can do more than one thing. And let me tell you what you probably experienced in your life and why you despise life insurance. Because the agent comes in and pulls out a pad and it says, okay, Mr. and Mrs. Jones, let's see, you got a mortgage on the house that's $400,000, and let's see, you want to send 3 kids through college. Well, that's the GDP of India. Well, that's $2 million. Well, I add it all up. If you lose your job or that you die early, well, you're going to need $28 million of insurance. And the darn premiums are going to be $2 million a year, about 10 times what you earn. So people get turned off it. Well, again, baking soda is not just for baking, and life insurance, you have been instructed that it only does one thing. I want to show you what the wealthy have been doing for over 100 years, and it's worked pretty well. It's another function of life insurance. Classically, why people have problems with life insurance, as I just shared, it's got a huge death benefit. You pay massive premiums each year. You never see the premiums while you're alive. The family sees it and enjoys it after you're gone, which is basically the death benefit. But what we want to teach you is use this tool, this product, for the highest and best use of living benefits, the highest and best use of your life insurance. And when we talk about the highest and best use, the way that it's designed, this is a special type of a product of life insurance, just like my baking soda can help to wash clothes or deodorize or things like that. This type thing is, it's not designed for the death benefit. It's designed for tax-free income for your life. In fact, the major emphasis is that you're going to use it for living benefits. While you're alive, you enjoy the benefits while you're alive, and not to benefit the whole family after you die. How does this thing differentiate itself from other life insurance type products that you've been introduced to? Your money grows tax-free. You take it out anytime you want tax-free. You don't have to wait till you're 59 and a half. And when you die, it blossoms, it doubles, triples, quadruples in value, and then transfers to the family tax-free. Well, the names used for this particular product, sometimes it's used by the name of Doug Andrews' book, Misfortune. Look at all the fortunes you have missed in your life, sometimes called an LIRP, a life insurance retirement plan. People throw up their hands when I use this one. Oh, Paul, there it is, life insurance. I don't want to hear about. No. We're talking about baking soda again. And that is a different product use that hasn't been explained to you before. The laser fund, as I showed you, that's Doug Andrews' recent book. The true term for these is an indexed universal life. Paul, how come I haven't heard about these things before? Pretty simple. Do understand things in general. You've seen term life insurance in your life. You've seen universal life. Probably you've seen whole life. Well, term insurance covers a specific period of time. It's cheap, it's inexpensive. And what do people, the excuse they get when they buy term insurance? I buy the term insurance because it's cheap, and then I'll invest the difference. But they never invest that difference. They spend it day to day. But understand, term covers a specific period. Did you know that 97% of term insurance policies never ever pay off because people outlive the term? LIRP is a life insurance retirement plans, but let's talk about the second type. You've heard about whole life insurance. Whole life insurance, you pay premiums for your whole life, hence the name whole life insurance. And the returns on that average 2.5–3% a year internally. Third type is a universal life, different from what we're talking about here. A universal life, it has failed most people because when they illustrate the amount of rates of return, the illustrated rates never, ever happen. And so in many cases, the policy implodes and the person has to keep putting money in sometimes later in life. We're going to be talking about the third type, the index universal life. Again, people say, why haven't I heard of it? Term insurance is easy to sell. Whole life is easy to sell. Universal life is easy to sell for the agents. And typically, they push for a high death benefit because based on the height of the death benefit determines commission. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with commission. Everyone watching this works for commission. No, I don't, Paul. In my company, they pay me a salary. You don't do your job, you're fired. That's a commission. So these things are a lot more difficult to explain. I'm giving you a broad overview. You choose that this is something you'd like to look at in more detail. We'll bring you into the office, and before anybody is allowed to get in, I go through intimate detail in explaining all of it. I demand of the people to read one of the books. That answers a lot of other questions there. Let's move on. Well, Paul, what about the strength of insurance companies? Big question I always get. Let's go back to the period 2008 through 2020. How many banks failed in the United States from the financial crisis right up through 2020? It was over 500 banks failed. Now, how many insurance companies failed over that same time period? It was 0. And people say, well, Paul, yeah, but I heard AIG went down during that financial crisis. That's correct. But AIG was an insurance holding company. Do understand something. They had commercial insurance departments that insured tugboats, they insured homes and things like that. They had one insurance company under their umbrella, maybe you remember the name, American General. Very, very strong, very financially profitable company. It was the only entity under AIG that was making money. In fact, management was trying to steal the profits out of that division and to shore up the other companies that were failing. And what happened? The government said, no, schmish and pop, you can't do that over that time. So since that time period, zero. Okay, since that time period, in fact, we can go back to 1970, there has only been one legal reserve life insurance company that went down. Okay, they bellied up, but not one policyholder lost a penny. Why? Because insurance companies have like a brotherhood or sisterhood in which their motto between them, their understanding is, should one of our brothers or sisters go down, we stand ready to buy out the policyholders. And that's why none of the policyholders lost a penny. Well, why would the other insurance companies buy out the other policyholders? Because life insurance is legalized gambling. The insurance companies know exactly what day we're going to die. They just don't tell us. So all the underwriting has been done on these people. They've figured out how long they're going to live. The premiums can be invested if there's any continuing premiums. It's a good game. It's a good game that's out there. Now, are insurance companies really safe? Well, let's do a little backdrop here, folks. You know, when you deposit money in a bank, let's say a checking account or savings account, a bank is required to keep certain reserves. They're required to keep anywhere from 3 pennies to 8 pennies in their vault or at the Federal Reserve or at another safe investment to assure there's no bank runs. This goes back to 1929 when we had all the bank failures. And you remember Jimmy Stewart in A Wonderful Life movie that was on there. Well, let's look at insurance companies' reserve. They are regulated more. You say, well, banks have FDIC insurance, Paul. Yeah, but FDIC insurance can only handle 3 bankruptcies a year. You saw over 500. So, well, how did the banks cover all the depositors' money? They taxed you and me. That's how it happened. That's it came out of general taxes. Insurance companies are regulated 50 times more than what banks are. There's state regulations. Well, but I like the idea of FDIC insurance. Each state has an insurance reserve fund, very, very similar to what you understand as FDIC insurance. But understand what banks are required to do. Remember, it's 3 to 8 pennies for every dollar put in. Insurance companies have to put $3, not 3 pennies, for every dollar you put in. So there's more reserve backing that is there. Well, why do insurance companies get this favorable tax treatment that I've heard about? Since 1870 in this country, there have been multiple recessions in this country's depressions along the way. And every time these things have happened, the insurance companies with their strong financial strength have bailed the U.S. out financially and extended the money. They didn't just give it to them. They lent the money to them at very, very low rates or preferred stock options, things of this nature. But what they also demanded was some tax benefits. Because remember, everybody's fighting for your money. The banks are trying to get your money. In fact, if you're near my age, you remember when we were young and we put money in the banks, they gave you toasters or microwave ovens or whatever to get your account over. There's a war going on to try and get a hold of everybody's money. Even the brokerage houses do the same thing. Oh, no commissions for 5 years, whatever it is. Well, the insurance company said, we want a little bit different tactic. And so we want some tax benefits. So during these years, every time, and it's been multiple times, 40, 50 times they've bailed out the United States government. Some of you may remember, and he's still alive, Warren Buffett. Okay, Buffett owns insurance companies. And in 2008 and 9, well, not just his insurance companies, he has 3 or 4 insurance companies, bailed out the U.S., and he came with some great deals on preferred stock, made quadrillions on behalf of Berkshire Hathaway. So we understand that there's some tax benefits. For example, I think many of you understand annuities, okay, just the big picture. But what happens when you put your money into a certificate of deposit at the bank? It earns interest, correct? And every year you still get a 1099, which means although I earned interest, I didn't take it out, I let it compound, okay, I still got to pay tax on it each year. One of the carve-outs that they did to make an insurance company more palatable with a bank is annuities, in many cases, are just an insurance company's competitive product with a bank. They carved out, you put your money into an annuity and it earns interest, you don't get a 1099. The interest continues to compound. You don't pay the tax on it until you pull the money out. Just kind of remember sort of how an IRA works or a 401k works. But this is for things, monies that are tied up in non-qualified plans. You just own the annuity outright, just like you do your bank account. Well, let's talk about and use some of the terms here. LIRP, Life Insurance Retirement Plan. IUL, Indexed Universal Life. Not Universal Life, Indexed Universal Life. Totally, completely different. Misfortune Plan. Doug Andrews had used that one. All the fortunes that are missed by people. And there's many, many other names. Don't care which one we use. I'll go back and forth based on the classes that I teach. Main elements, the money grows tax-free. You can take it out anytime tax-free. You don't have to wait till you're 59 and a half. Well, Paul, if I started at 40, could I start taking money out at 48? Yep, you can do it. Notice the word tax-free. Each one is tax-free. There's no other element that works this way. Well, I can do that with a Roth. Yeah, folks, this is a super duper 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 Roth on steroids. And we'll talk about Roths and how they have limitations, how much you can put in each year, and can I roll over certain amounts. So I can take the money out anytime tax-free, and when I die, it blossoms. It doubles, triples, quadruples in value and transfers to the family tax-free. Well, let's go and talk about these taxes. Little history in the tax code. The tax code was instituted in the United States in 1913 with the addition of the 16th Amendment, which allowed Congress to extract taxes from you. And it's changed a billion times less one. The sections at that same time of institutions, the insurance companies got these 3 sections of the code put into the tax code, 72E, 7702, and 101A in the code, that said if you own a special type of a life insurance company, not term, not universal life, not whole life, money grows tax-free, take it out anytime I want tax-free. When I die, it transfers to the family tax-free. I will tell you, on my mother's soul, every one of your senators and congressmen got a whole bunch of numbers of these. Don't do as I say, do as I do, they're kind of bringing forth to you. But let's go back. They were around since 1913, but the use to the public was kind of muted. First of all, the public doesn't want to spend a lot of time learning. Folks, I do tons of educational classes. And, you know, the classes start out, maybe it's a 4 or 5 class curriculum, start out with big numbers and it funnels down to a small number. Why? Because I hear from people, Paul, this is too hard. I don't want to learn how to save on my taxes. I'd rather stay home and watch Dancing with the Stars or whatever the show may be, or the football game, and just complain about taxes the rest of my life like all other Americans. So what happened was, the very wealthy paid attention. They had great advisors that were teaching them, and they wanted to learn. In order to become wealthy, you don't follow the crowd. You got to take some risks. That's understandable in all things in life, but you got to study, read, and move ahead. That's the secret to success. There was a fella by the name, had a small brokerage firm operating in New York. You may have remembered his name, E.F. Hutton. And you remember the great ads with E.F. Hutton. When E.F. Hutton talks, boom, everybody listens. You remember those great ads. Back in 1978, in his small firm in New York, besides having a brokerage firm, he had a tiny insurance company. And he was sitting with his very, very wealthy clients, and they were complaining about the terrible taxes. Because if I go to 78, the maximum federal tax rate was 78%, plus you had a New York state tax rate, plus a city tax rate. They were paying 89, 90%. Oh, is that their fair share? I don't know. And so they complained to him. So EF went into the tax code all the way back to 1913 and said, wow, there's a section in the tax code. My clients can put their money grows tax-free, take it out anytime tax-free. When I die, it blossoms and transfers tax-free. And so these were very, very wealthy people. And they would come in, and when they understood the concept, they could take $10 million and dump it into a minimum policy. Back then, folks, the minimum death benefit that an insurance company would issue was a $10,000 death benefit. So you got to picture this with me. $10 million sitting in a $10,000 death benefit. Well, you'll agree this thing was super duper overfunded. But it wasn't the death benefit. They didn't want the life insurance. Got to understand this. This was like a piece of saran wrap that was wrapped around it. So you will concur with me, this thing is super duper overfunded that's on there, which is exactly what they wanted, because from this 10 million in there, it's growing tax-free. Take it out anytime I want tax-free. When I die, it transfers to the family tax-free. And remember, again, I don't have to wait till I'm 59 and a half to take this out, or all those other convoluted things that are in place there. Now, things were going along really, really cool. And where were the people getting the $10 million? Well, they were getting it from the banks and brokerage houses. Now, you'll agree with me with this statement. Wealthy people talk to wealthy people, poor people talk to poor people. So when the first people started with E.F. Hutton, putting in their 10 million or 20 or whatever it was, they went to their neighborhood and talked to their friends and said, you got to see my buddy E.F. Hutton. He'll help you a lot. Well, money started pouring in 1978 to his small insurance company. And the money kept pouring in. Where did the people take the money from? Well, they took it from their banks or brokerage firms. Well, the bankers and brokers went to Congress in 1982 and complained and said, you got to kill this guy, E.F. Hutton. I said, we can't kill him. That's not right. You got to shut him down. You can't do that. That's antitrust. You can't do it. So over the next few years, Congress implemented 3 tax law changes, wink, wink, to supposedly slow down or stymie the money moving out of the banks or the brokerage houses that were in place. Now, up to this point, to recollect with you, I could take a hunk of money one time and dump it into these policies. Well, over this 6-year period, Congress knew they couldn't shut down this program that was in place. The first law passed in 1982, and the acronym was TEFRA, the Tax Equity and Fiscal Responsibility Act. And what happened was Congress came to E.F. Hutton and said, E.F., you know, you got people putting 10 million into a $10,000 death benefit. You got to raise the death benefit. He said, okay, I will. What should I raise it to, Congress? And Congress says, I don't know, just raise it. So we arbitrarily raised the death benefit to around $250,000, which is still not a lot of insurance. Money kept pouring in. And so in 1984, the bankers and brokers went back to Congress and said, hey guys, EF, we told you to raise the death benefit. He said, I did. I raised it to $250,000. And Congress said, that's not the number we wanted. And EF said, but Congress, you never told me the number you wanted. And Congress said, shut up. Since we are infinitely more intelligent than you and all the rest of the Americans, sound a little familiar, we as Congress will determine the minimum death benefit based on a person's age and gender. And so they came out with what was called the definition of insurance. Money kept pouring in. So in 1988, the bankers and brokers went back to Congress, said, get rid of this guy, E.F. Hutton, in this program. And so Congress came back with the TAMRA Act, the Technical and Miscellaneous Revenue Act that took place. And so to recollect with you, if you remember, I could take 10 million and dump it into originally a $10,000 death benefit. Now it was $250 or 20 million, whatever the money amount. They said, no longer can you do this in one lump sum. You must spread the amount of contribution over a minimum of 5 years. A minimum of 5 years. Can it be longer? Yeah. Can it be less? No, it's got to be a minimum of 5 years. See, what they got back, Congress got back to the bankers and said, look, if you see somebody moving it to one of these policies, you got 5 years. Take the guy out to dinner, or the gal, and take her out to the ball game and convince them to stop investing in this program. Folks, it didn't touch them one way or the other. So there's a little history for you on the benefits that have taken place. What are the goals of this program? I want the minimum death benefit that the law allows. This is, in order to play in the Mickey Mouse Club game, this is what you got to do. You want maximum death benefit, fine. Go out with your company plan or go and get a term. This is minimum death benefit. I just want a piece of saran wrap wrapped around you. It provides maximum cash value. It provides maximum tax-free income for life. And if you want to do it maybe with your sweetie, you could do it for both of you. Just get the big concept right now. We'll discuss it more in person. So remember, these things are governed by the rules are laid out by the government on here. And so remember, what does the government always want? They want everything to be fair and equal. It's socialism. That's all it is, socialism. So to make things fair and equal for everyone, this is how they did it. They said, we want the premiums to be fair and equal to whomever they are, whether they're a young 22-year-old person or a 65-year-old person. And here's how they did it. For simplicity, these are not real numbers, but to give you the concept, let's say I got a 65-year-old and he's going to invest $500,000 over the multiple years into his, shall we call it LIRP or IUL. Well, that's going to be spread out over the 5 years, even Steven, over that time period. And the government says the minimum death benefit under the definition of insurance for a 65-year-old, $500,000 will be about 2.25, a little bit more, 1.2 million. All right. Now, well, how do we make this fair and even? Let's look at a 22-year-old. Yeah, name one 22-year-old that's got 500,000, but just play the game. With the same 500,000 for age 22-year-old, you will agree with me, the 65-year-old probably got some medical problems, a little riskier, but the 22-year-old is healthy, strong, virile, okay, along the way, doesn't have any health problems per se. So for the 500,000, the death benefit multiplier is 10 times what they put in. So it's going to be 5 million, but you'll agree for the 22-year-old, the cost per thousand of insurance is tiny like that, as opposed to a 65-year-old where the premium cost is higher per thousand. Nonetheless, with this differential, the premium amount for the same 500,000 going in is going to be equal, okay, fair and equal between the two of them. They'll be identical in the amount if they put in the exact amount there. Now, what about the fees, Paul? Geez, I hear about the fees all the time. Well, don't believe me, get back to me, email it. I'll send you a great article on what mutual fund fees and 401ks. And people say, no, I'm with Vanguard, it's 0.25%. Folks, let me explain something. Many years ago, I thought about opening a mutual fund, went to an SEC class, and they taught us you got to charge a minimum of 2% just to break even in a mutual fund. You won't make any money. You're just going to break even. Well, I'm paying 0.25%. People don't understand all the buried fees that are in there, including Vanguard and all the rest of them. Get in touch with me if you want the article and you darn near have a heart attack. The average amount of fees that people have is 4% plus per year. Now, when you get into a mutual fund or a 401k and you got a $10,000, well, the fee starts low, 4% of 10,000, about $400. But over the years, you keep contributing, it's growing, growing, growing. Hey, near retirement, I got $1 million. 4% of $1 million, we're starting to talk up there. Whoa, you're starting to talk about $40,000. That's with a mutual fund. With an insurance company, LIRP or IUL there, it's the opposite, because the insurance company does tons of work in the beginning. So the fees start high in the opening year or years, and so I got $10,000, the fees are going to be high. By the time I build it up many, many years later, the fees are exceptionally low, and I'll explain why in just a little while here. But the average cost that you will pay for these IULs over time is less than 1% per year. It's the main idea on that. Now, let's look at some examples here of how these IULs work. Excuse me. When the market goes up, you participate in the gain. When the market goes down, you do not lose a penny. I'm going to say it again. Market goes up, you participate in the gain. When the market drops, I do not lose a penny. In your mutual funds, yeah, I may go 30% up in a year, but I may lose 30% in a year. And if you have attended some of my classes, or if you've got some finance background, remember, if I lose 25% in an account, I need about 32, 33% to make up. It's avoiding the losses that's the keynote on it. I will tell you, over time, these IULs or LIRPs average about a 7 to 10% return tax-free, which is what? The equivalent of a what? About a 9 to 12, 13% taxable. Same idea that's on there. Now, in order to do this, some of them, not all of these programs, have a cap on it. And the cap may be, oh, let's say you pick the S&P 500 as an index. Well, the index may go up 18%, but you may have a cap of 16. So you're only getting 16 of the 18. But that's for the insurance. I never, ever lose a penny. That's assurance that I don't lose a penny on these things. Things are really, really fantastic. What difference does it make if I go up 30% in my market account, and so my 100,000 grows up to 130, whereas I may only get 16, 17% on my cap, and then this sucker drops down 30%, the market drops, I stay even, and then I got to start my mutual fund at a lower level to come up later. As I said, the average that you will earn is about 7 to 10% tax-free. Now, some points that I want you to understand on this. Personally, myself, I've got over 17, we call them buckets, little buckets, that I've accumulated over the years. And people say, why do you do that? Why have you done it? Well, like new automobiles, about every 4 or 5 years, they got backup cameras, they got new things added. These things evolve over time. Not that my old ones were bad, they were great at that time, but there's more bells and whistles. And maybe you work for a salary. My practice here, income's up, down, income up, down. And so when I have extra hunks of money, I put it off to the side, and I'm always looking at new and better products that come out for these companies. Very, very competitive, very, very competitive indeed. May I make a suggestion to you here? As you're planning and thinking on these things, figure that and I tell everybody that, you'll get about a 6-7% rate of return. We illustrate all of these at around 6%. Why? Pretty simple. If I underestimate and overperform, then I've done a really good job. People are happy. So Paul, can you explain how this indexing thing that you talked about works? How do I get my returns on there? Folks, it gets kind of really complicated but I've got a simple way if you understand the concept. It doesn't work exactly this way, but it's the concept. Say you have $1,000 to invest in the program. And to understand how these things work, the term you'll hear is point to point. So let's say we're using the S&P 500, and I'm going to give you a simple example. Let's say on the day your money goes in, you start the index, and the index, let's say, is $1,000. And 1 year later, you don't see anything during the year. 1 year later, the index it is at 1,100. Would you agree I made $100 increase on $1,000? That's a 10% increase. Therefore, your account value would go up by 10%. Okay, simple. But how do I get protected on the downside? Well, let's look over here. Let's say you put the $1,000 in. What the insurance company does, this is not exactly it, but you get the concept. They're going to take around $950 and buy a 1 year zero coupon bond or equivalent that 1 year from now will mature back to the 1,000. You got that concept? The other $50, they're going to buy a call option on the market. Call option is just you're making a bet that the market's going up. Put option, you're making a bet that the market drops. So if the index goes up, as I've used in the previous example, by 10%, then I will get a 10% return added to my original $1,000 that I put in. But if the index goes negative, drops, or is at zero at the end of the 1 year, okay, then the option expires worthless. The option expires worthless. And you just lost the $50 that was bet, shall I put bet, on this index option. But what happens is my 950 boon up to 1,000. So do you see when the market drops or the market return is zero when it drops, I'm assured to stay even. I don't participate in the loss. Market gain, I make the gain. Remember, oh, in my example, $1,000 when I made 100, I got 1,100. What happens the next year if the market drops? I stay frozen at the 1,100. Well, now let's talk for a few seconds here and allow me, if you will, some of the details of how these things kind of operate. So I've got an example I'm going to use, and folks, this is just an example. This is not you, but this is an example for you to understand. Let's say a person was going to put in $500,000. Under the rules, it's $100,000 a year. Paul, I don't have $500,000 in it. Everything I'm going to show you, folks, this thing is a linear function. So if you put in half the amount, as this example, everything is halved. If you put in double the amount, everything is double. You with me on it? From there, do I have to put an equal amount in each and every year? Yes, but that's the ideal. But what happens if you're in a variable type of a situation that I could put in, well, 100,000 the first year, 25,000 the next, 86,000? Yes, you can do it, but you got to list it out initially so that under the government rules, I see your bucket size, because based on the amount that is going into the bucket, then it determines the death benefit. You remember earlier I explained the formula of a 65-year-old versus someone that was 22 years old. Here is a 50-year-old. This was a live illustration that we did here. Get the concept. And people get feared, oh my gosh, I'm committed for 5 years to do it. Well, let's see your 401k plan and you're planning to work 30 years and you're going to make a commitment for 25 years to commit to put a certain amount in for those 25 or 30 years, 25,000. Oh, what happens if I leave that company? You don't do it anymore. What the government has done here is they've allowed pressure relief valves. That is, well, what happens if I put in 100,000 the first year, and the second year we put in 100,000? In the third year, one of the spouses loses the job. Back in 2008, 2009, I probably had 40 of my clients, one of the spouses lost the job. And they said, Paul, what the heck are we going to do? We can't put that 100,000 in. That's all right. Government's got pressure relief valves. So I skipped that one, but then they went back to work and they could put the 100,000. Well, what about the missing 100,000? What the government allows you to do is a makeup provision. You can make up that 100,000 either in the 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, or 11th year. It doesn't have to be one lump sum. You could put in, $20,000 a year for 5 years to make up the amount. What happens, Paul, if we lose our job in the 3rd year? We paid our 3rd year premium and I can't pay the last 2. I'm winking at you here. This is another pressure relief valve. We can come back in and redesign the policy, wink, wink, and just our position is, look, Mary and Joe Jones, they never meant to put 500,000. They only wanted to put 300,000 into it. They lied to us, wink, wink. And so they allow us to redesign the whole program in the 7th year based on that amount, because that allows for the minimum death benefit and the definition of insurance. It's a lot of detail. Just understand this is pressure relief valves. Well, Paul, after I put in the 5 years of whatever the amount is, could I skip 2 years and start putting some more money in? Yep. Well, what happens if I get a big bonus and in the 7th year I want to put in 400,000? Can I do that? No. Notice my cap is at 100,000. You can never put more than 100,000 in each year, but you can put less. Can't put more, but less. So if you wanted to put in 80,000 this year, 12,000 over in this year, it gives you a lot of variability. Let's wait. We'll get down, discuss your whole financial situation before you get into it. So now let's start talking some hardball here, folks. All right. Day one, you put in 100,000. As Doug Andrew in his books will always say, there's 3 ways to get money out of these programs: the smart way, the dumb way, and the sad way, really. The smart way, well, we'll go into the sad way. You put in the 100,000 day one, day 2 you die, the family gets 2.1 million. Oh, it's sad, you died. But let me tell you, for the family, that's a hell of a rate of return. You put in 100 grand and the next day they get 2.1 million. It's almost an infinity rate of return. Look at my other 2 columns. Cash value, I think everybody understands cash value. That's real moolah that I can get out. Surrender value, take the word surrender. I quit, I give up, I want out. What we're going to show you, the dumb way, is to surrender. That's the dumb way, and I'll explain why. You put 100,000 in day 1. Day 2, you say, I want to get out. I can see, looking at my math here, when the insurance company, remember I told you it's expensive on the front end? When they do all the underwriting, do all the medicals, all the rest of it, I can see that their costs up front are about $80,000. Just see the difference. So if you say, I quit, I want to get out, the insurance company says, I love you, Joe or Mary, but we ain't going to lose 80 grand. They're going to take it out of your hide. And what the insurance company does, as I'll explain in a few minutes, is they amortize, they spread that, in this case, 80,000 in cost. It's not with every policy. I'm just using this example. And they'll spread that over a 12 to 13 year period to recover their money. Second column here, we look at cash value. You understand cash, that's moolah in there. But Paul, wait a minute. I put $100,000 in. It's only 80,000. Who's stealing the money? Relax. Remember I told you I could put money in day 1. I don't have to wait to age 59 and have to take it out. In theory, I could take money out starting day 2, in theory. Now, it's not that the insurance company doesn't trust you, they just don't trust you, period. And what happens is, I'll explain, you could borrow out about 90% of the money, let's call it about 70 grand. When do I have to pay it back? You do not have to pay the money back unless you quit the policy or you die. You don't pay it back unless you quit the policy and die. Now, the insurance company is nervous that you may not pay back that amount of loan, so they're going to keep a goodly amount in reserve just in case you don't pay back that loan. Okay, they don't have a gun at your head. They're not doing that. But understand something. What business is the insurance company in? Business is selling life insurance and making a profit off of that. And at the end of the year, all the insurance companies will show off between each other. How many policies do you have? Well, I got 10 million. Well, I got 11 million. Yeah, mine, we're bigger than you. You understand that thing. Get the big concept. So I put my money in, and for this particular couple, could I take money out in the 3rd years? Could I take it out? Yeah, but that's not what the desire. In doing their comprehensive plan, they were planning to retire at age 67. That was their full retirement age. The longer you leave the money in, the more it cooks and marinates, and the greater amount I can get out. Holding along with our show here. By the way, folks, if you'll follow my little pen down, you'll look around, I'm coming here around age 62, which is the 13th year. The point at which the cash value just equals the surrender value, okay? Just equals the surrender. That's where we have amortized all the costs. So the costs are heaviest in the opening years. Oh, by the way, for the 500,000 put in for this age, it was a male, female's a little different, it's 2.1 million. But Paul, notice, folks here, the death benefit goes up to the 5th year and drops off. Yeah, what's that? This is a little trick. You have to be knowledgeable in these things. What happens is you're putting more and more and more money into these things. Figure like a bladder or a balloon. So we're making the bladder or balloon expand more to take more money. What's the output of that? You get a heck of a lot more payout. And notice we're allowed under the law to drop the death benefit after the 5th year. I don't want the life insurance. But this, for this age and this amount, is the minimum amount of surrender. If I had my way, it would go back to the old 10,000, but that's long gone. And then it levels off. All right. Write down your questions so when you come in to visit with us, then we can answer more detail. Let's look at age 67. Our hero decides that he wants to start taking some money out. By the way, let's look at the cash value and just round with me on this. Just round, sorry. I got $929,000 in here, and make believe that money's sitting in a CD and assume 0 rate of return. If I got $929 or $1 million, million's a little bit easier for me, and I'm going to pull out $75,000 a year out of my CD account you have at the bank, would you concur with me? All this money will be gone, we'll see 750 in about 12 to 15 years, round it off. You with me on it? What we're going to show you is how unique this is that will beat the daylights out of a CD or money sitting in a Roth account or whatever have you. It's time to take out money. So, you and I, we're going to dance and walk up to the insurance company. And I'm going to say, I'd like you to meet Mr. and Mrs. Jones, a lovely, lovely couple here. They've accumulated money in the insurance policy. And here's the unique difference, which you'll read in the book, any one of the books. We're going to borrow the money from the insurance company, not take it out of your account like you would at a CD. But do understand, let's go back to the bank CD. You got $1 million in a CD and you got it a 5-year renewable CD. You just renewed it and said, Mr. Banker, I need to take money out CD. They're going to say, no, don't do that. You're going to pay penalties and taxes on, you're going to get beat up on it. But you will agree that's collateral. And any banker will lend you against that collateral. You with me on it? Same concept here. So we go up to the insurance company and we go up and we go in to see the bank. Insurance companies has an internal bank. This is not like the Chase Bank down the street. It's just an internal banking function only for its depositors. And so the banker happens to be Mr. Potter from It's a Wonderful Life, old white-haired gentleman. He's going, well, young man and young lady, what kind of collateral you got for the loan? And they're going to say, well, we've got cash value of $929, and there's a death benefit over $2 million of which you're holding the policy. Fine, young man, I'll lend you guys the money. And by the way, the number you see here is 74,000. This is designed by the insurance company. They know that you could withdraw that money, and you're going to see we go out to age 120. These things will continue if you can live out to age 420 years old. Just understand that's how unique these things are. You're probably not going to make it that long, one way or the other. So the insurance company is going to lend you the let's call it $75,000. Oh, Paul, isn't there an interest charge on that? Yeah, right now as we're doing the interest charge runs between 3.5% to 4%. But wait a minute, Paul, that's a lot of money. Do I have to pay that every year? No. The interest in the loan is not due until you quit the policy or die. What I want you to understand is this is positive arbitrage. If these policies are earning 6 or 7% and I'm borrowing at 4%, that's positive arbitrage. Just think of your house. Oh, my mortgage is running 3%, house is growing at 7-8%. I'm doing fine. Get the concept. It's not, arbitrage is not a bad word. It's positive arbitrage. So you got the $74,000. I want everybody to understand, I'm going to put a concrete wall as best I can draw down here. This is a concrete wall. And this is the unique feature that you can't get in any other product, any other insurance things that are in place. So you borrowed out the money and you've got $75,000, you took it out and you party. And then you decide, I don't like this thing anymore, I want to quit. Before you can cash in or surrender it, Mr. Potter's going to be there and say, wait a minute, we got to do the bookkeeping on this. Let me see here. You had $929,000 on it. It earns 7%, minus the loan, minus the interest. Would everybody see here that the surrender value dropped? Okay, it dropped because you took some of the money out before surrender, when you surrendered it there. And so minus the loan and the interest. So this column is showing you the net value. Try another example. You borrow the $75,000 out, party too hard, and you die the next day. The family goes to collect the death benefit, and Mr. Potter's there saying, wait a minute, we got to do the accounting on this thing. Let's see now, you had in the account 929 plus 7% minus the loan and the interest. Would everybody see that the death benefit dropped? Their thinking is, well, you got some of the death benefit up front before you died. So both of these columns are the net numbers after the loans have been paid back in the interest. You don't have to do any other calculation. Oh, what happens if it turns upside down? It doesn't. Insurance companies never lose because they know what day we're going to die. And what happens here is they're going to keep things safe. By the way, remember I was talking to you about safety between banks and insurance companies? Remember I told you the bank's got to keep 3 cents on reserve and the insurance company is $3 on reserve? There's one other thing. The banks are encouraged to put your 3 cents for every dollar invested in the safest investment in the world. That money in reserve is known as Tier 1 capital. And do you know where the government encourages them to put it? Into insurance companies, because they're the safest investment in the world. Are we okay so far? Write down your notes if you don't understand it, and when we're face to face, I'll discuss it. See my line here. Notice, folks, I'm not taking the money out of the cash value. I'm borrowing it from Mr. Potter on the outside. Therefore, growing at 6 to 7%, my cash value continues to grow and grow and grow and grow and grow. Ergo, my collateral continues to grow and grow and grow, which means I can continue to be taking money out of these policies. Just like your house. Your house doubles in value over a 10-year period. Oh, honey, we can finance. I can take out more money. Getting the concept? Yeah, but what happens if the stock market drops? Who cares? My value is frozen. Remember we discussed if this was a CD and in about 12 to 15 years, so if I add this 67, 70, that would be around right here, the CD would be empty. But notice with this strategy here, I am able to continue to grow this program over and over and over again. I continue to grow it. Good? Let's move on. All right, and I want to move on here. Yeah, let me move on down here with my example. And I'm going to go out to teach you another thing. Again, this is surrender value. This is death benefit. This is the cash value. But Paul, look, my death benefit is dropped. I don't want the death benefit. If I could do this for $1, I'd do it, but I can't. The death benefit is tertiary. It's not even secondary that's in place. But what I'd like for you guys to do is let's go down through 422, right about, right here. Let me get my pen back out. All right, let's see my pen. And right at this point, does everybody see where the surrender value is equal to the death benefit? The point at which the surrender value just equals the death benefit, run your finger along there, age 96. The insurance company feels this is your expected mortality when you're going to die. This is the average mortality. What does average mortality mean? Okay, ladies, gentlemen, go back to your high school graduating class. If you're a man, think of all the guys that are in the class. Gals, think of all the gals that was in your class, okay, from that level. At age 65, how many from the high school graduating class are still alive? So what they're saying is with a mortality of 96 from a 65-year-old, half of you will die before age 96. The other half will live a hell of a lot past age 96. And in my almost 50 years of advising people on this, my clients tend to be of higher income, higher affluence. They have health insurance. They go to the doctors. They don't take illegal drugs. They're not smoking cigarettes or doing things like that. So they live a hell of a lot longer than that. We good? Oh, wait a minute, Paul. What happens if I want to get out now at this point? Geez, I get cash value of 5.5 million. Okay, that's the, shall we call it the equity in my house example there. But if I surrender, I only got 334,000. Where the hell's the money? Simple. The difference between this, round this off with me, okay, is about 5 million, 5.2 million. That tells me if you take all the 75,000 you pulled out, plus all the interest that is accrued, the net benefit, whether you surrender or die, is 334. Simple enough from there. We got that in place? Good. Now, notice something here. We're going to move this thing along and along, and let's see, at some point, yeah, if we look at this level, in fact, let's go back here to age 95. The year before, notice surrender value is 322, death benefits 374. So cash out is 322, dying value is 374. Round with me, it's about a $50,000 difference. Okay, round with me on it. Therefore, whether you cash out and get 322 or you die and the insurance company pays 374, what does that mean? You are self-insuring yourself at this point for 322,000. That's your cash surrender value of the 374. So the insurance company is only at risk for $50,000. Therefore, although you're 95 years old and the cost of insurance is high, you're only paying for about $50,000 worth of insurance. So the insurance company is at risk for $50,000 there. Come back with me up to the show. You put $100,000 in, you die the next day. The insurance company is at risk for $2 million because you've already put $100,000 in it. Are you with me, folks? With me. Almost done here. So let's have some fun times and follow my little pen here. You get up to age, 110 years old, and the family's got you strapped with ropes in a chair and you're leaning over and they're all standing around you with pillows and you know they're planning to kill you. I'm making light of a serious subject. You want to stay alive, but you can say, folks, you kill me now You guys are only going to get $1.4 million. If you wait to 120, you're going to get 4.7 million. May add some years to your life here. Paul, where the heck did this thing come? Well, how come it's growing the death benefit here? Well, it's pretty simple when you get down to it. Come back up here to, we talked about, oh, you die and your expected death benefit is here. Notice what starts happening as we move a little bit further ahead. And we get up to right about here. And what happens is, earlier, as I took money out and borrowed it, plus the insurance, my surrender value went down and my death benefit went down. But notice, I'm just going to circle a point here for rounding off, my cash account value, or the equity in your house, is $10 million. If I'm earning 6-7% on that as a number, I'm earning somewhere between 60 to 70,000 bucks a year, right along that level. Oh, okay, from that level. Obviously, then the amount that I'm earning on the account is greater than the loan and the interest that's due on the year. So under the insurance law principles that are in place, earlier, following along, my surrender value and death benefit must drop if I'm not earning enough to cover the cost of the loan and the interest. Well, the reverse happens. When I'm earning more than what the loan and the interest in, by right, then my surrender value must continue to grow and my death benefit must continue to grow. So round with me, if you will, okay, because I'm just doing this on the cuff. I'm just doing it, trying to figure out what's going on. We had a program here in which you put in 500,000 and I'm pulling out 75,000 tax-free, and I got a death benefit coming along for the ride. Would you agree with me 10 years later, you've got 750,000, that's your original 500,000 back, plus 250,000 gain. And I'm going to use age 70. It's easier math for me. You live out to 120 or whatever year, and I'm pulling out 75,000 for 50 years. You can do the math. It's approaching 4 million I pulled out tax-free. And when I die, the family gets 4.5 million. I've extended it to the maximum here. You pick whatever number you want. You come in and visit with us. I will show you. You do the exact thing comparison. Do it with a CD. Do it with a stock account, a 401k, an IRA, a Roth account, and it beats the daylights out of it each and every time. Oh, and by the way, with your 401k, IRA, your CD, or your Roth account, do you guys have a couple of $1 million of life insurance that comes along for the ride? Well, that's my quick and dirty that I am presenting to you guys here.